Hi, my name is Nick Place, and I have a business called Route 961 Training and Consultants. And on behalf of Portage County, I am presenting a topic that has come up in a lot here in the state of Wisconsin. And wherever you live in our great state, you have probably seen advertisements for Delta 8 THC. But today we're going to not talk just about Delta 8 THC. We're also going to talk about other novel tetrahydrocannabinoids because other THC compounds can be made from hemp other than Delta 8 THC. And you're going to start to see those pop up wherever you live in our great state going forward because of the popularity of Delta 8 THC. So some of the photos that I showed you here are some examples of what Delta 8 THC will look like. Okay, so the picture on the left, we'll talk about that. As we get along here, that is a vending machine that sells Delta 8 THC vape cartridges. This one was taken in the Shawano, Wisconsin area. But it can Delta 8 THC or other novel THC from hemp can come in a variety of different types of products, including edibles and things they're used to seeing with marijuana. So down and dirty here, what are novel tetrahydrocannabinols? So if I'm a hemp manufacturer, and we'll talk about the legal aspects of hemp right now and why you're seeing these products pop up here in Wisconsin. But if I'm going to make a novel THC from hemp, the first thing I have to do is I have to isolate CBD into its purest form. I'll show you a picture here in a second what that looks like. But once I get CBD into its purest form or any other cannabinoid made from hemp, I then use isomerization then to change that. It's basically a chemical conversion where I change the CBD molecule to Delta 8 or Delta 10 or Delta 6 or THCO, whatever type of tetrahydrocannabinol that I want to make. So it's used, again, isomerization. We'll talk about how isomerization is covered under Wisconsin law and also on the federal side of things as well. So some things to know here. Now, that picture of the dumpster fire that you see, that is my take. Okay, that's my opinion on how Wisconsin has handled this. It has been a dumpster fire. There's been very little regulation. The Delta 8 or CBD products that you buy in a store may contain what's on the label, but it may not. There is no to very little regulation in our state. So it's pretty much the Wild West. And I'll show you some examples of some things that I did on the side here. The claims, now there's no scientifically validated research that validates or proves that claims of Delta 8 THC. So some claims people take it for sleep, they take it for anxiety, medicinal purposes, on and on and on and on. There's no data to back that up. We'll talk a little bit here towards the end about the FDA and some concerns the FDA has, including late 2021, they put out a warning to people who are using Delta 8 THC products. High Times Magazine has warned people not to take these products. And if High Times Magazine would come out and say not to take it, I think that says something there because they are huge advocates for drug legalization, but they are not for products in the hemp industry right now being pushed out in the novel THC market. So the claims are that it's not as psychotropic as marijuana. Again, there's nothing scientifically to back that up. It's a lot of marketing and advertising that you see those claims. We'll talk a little bit at some of the things going on the federal level here in Wisconsin. The take that our Attorney General's office has come up with is based on Wisconsin law. These products, these novel THCs, are legal. And I think most coalitions, I think you would agree with me that one problem, again, being the Wild West and that the dumpster fire that we have here with our laws is there are no age restrictions on hemp sales to minors. So theoretically, you could have a kid walk into a gas station and buy the stuff, and there's really no laws that stop that from happening. So we'll talk a little bit about State Statute 94.55, which covers hemp in Wisconsin, and also 961.32. Chapter 961 deals with controlled substances here in the state of Wisconsin. You look at those two statutes, those two chapters, you'll find nothing regarding prohibiting hemp sales to minors. Again, the one takeaway today is don't trust any labeling that you see on any hemp products because it's unregulated. So I talked about it real briefly here, how do manufacturers make novel THC products. Well, first they have to isolate CBD, and it takes I think this is where some people may not quite understand the work that goes into making these products. So to get CBD to its purest form, you have to isolate it from the plant. So you have to take the trichomes of which the trichomes are the sticky part of the cannabis plant where many of the cannabinoids hang out. You have to strip the cannabinoids off of the plant. Then you have to refine it to 99.99% purity. So once you can get it to that type of purity, upwards of 99%, it's going to have a crystalline type. That cannabinoid is going to have a crystalline type appearance, which you see here in the center top photo. Okay, it's going to be a very crystalline type appearance. So that's pure CBD that you see there. So then the manufacturers will take some additional steps, again using isomerization. And here you see Walter White giving us a brief description of what isomerization is, pretty common technique in chemistry. And then they'll change that CBD into Delta 8. And there's a jar of it that you see down below there on the lower part of the screen. All right. Just a quick overview of some of the equipment that is used. Again, I don't think most people quite understand. Again, it does take a lot of work to do this. These are some pictures that I took at the High Times Cannabis Cup in Flint, Michigan. So you need some pretty heavy machinery to do this. I suppose there's, a guy named Daryl and his other brother Daryl that may not use this type of equipment if they're trying to make it in a clandestine laboratory. But most of your hemp manufacturers are going to use this type of machinery to make their CBD products or Delta 8. And these are the first steps here to get that done. So the picture that you see on the left, that's a rotovap machine that they use with some distillation in there as well. Okay, so if you want a really good introduction on how one manufacturer makes their Delta 8 THC products, I have a link here up above. Follow that. It's a company called Extract Labs. They have two chemists that go through step by step. Once they have CBD in its purest form, or to a 99% consistency, what they do to change that over to Delta 8 THC. So it's a pretty informative video, or a pretty informative video. It's about an hour long, but they go through the different steps. And I think you would agree with me after you watch that video for an hour. It takes a lot. I guess the point to all of this is there is no magical Delta 8 THC cannabis plant. Delta 8 THC is found in very small concentrations in the cannabis plant, and manufacturers have to go through extra steps to make these novel THC products. Excuse me. So here's just some examples here of some products that I bought when this trend really started to come about, late 2020. I visited a Green Bay CBD store. And I sent through my company, we purchased these products and we sent them off for testing to see what would come back in them. So the label on here said 85% Delta 8 THC that was in this particular vape. Again, it's an unregulated industry. Again, the one takeaway here, just because the label says it's going to be 85% or 850 milligrams, doesn't mean it's going to come back at that. So this one here came back a little bit above that. The pouch that you see in the middle, this is what law enforcement uses to test controlled substances on the street. So one thing I tell police officers is if you come across Delta 8 THC products, you will get a positive pouch result in the Duke and Wildline pouch, okay, because those pouches test for THC and they don't differentiate between marijuana and the other novel THC compounds out there. Another takeaway here too, if you are subject to random drug screening, do not take these products because you will show up hot for marijuana on your urine screen. Urine screens work the same way. They don't tell the difference between the two. So if you, if people from all walks of life, I heard of a truck driver who was taking Delta 8 THC and CBD products, shows up hot on his random drug screen for his job, ends up losing his job. That's the nature of this. Okay, so it's going to show. It's not your routine urinalysis is not going to tell the difference between these different products. It's just looking for tetrahydrocannabinol. Another example here, again, hemp flower that you see here sold in a outlet in the Green Bay area. Now, this isn't Delta 8. This is reported as CBD, but just an example here of the unregulated industry. So the label says it should be almost 16% CBD, comes back at half of that. So the label is wrong. Okay. And also on top of that, the label says less than 0.3% total THC. It's so the legal limit in the state of Wisconsin to have is 0.3%. So it's very, very small. This came back at almost 7 times that, so 2.16% THC. What you need to know about that is if you were smoking or using this type of CBD product, you probably would test positive for THC. Again, nobody is checking this stuff. It lives in an unregulated market here in Wisconsin. Other THCs that you'll see if you go into different hemp stores, CBD stores, now that Delta 8 has become popular, other novel THC compounds are also available, and they use the same isomerization process that Delta 8 uses. So they refine CBD to, again, a very high consistency, and they just change the formula around a little bit to make Delta 6 or Delta 10. So if you do hear these other compounds that you're not familiar with, that's pretty much a variation of Delta 8 THC. So instead of making Delta 8, they made one of these other THCs. And also just to remember, there is no scientific validation about any of these medical claims or the psychotropic claims of these different novel THC compounds. That the casework doesn't exist. And that's a problem that the FDA has right now because of the lack of research on these novel THCs and the long-term health effects from taking these products. Another thing that we found out here is the laboratory testing. So if I'm a retailer and I am sending my products off to make sure that it's meeting, or if I'm a manufacturer, I grow hemp, I'm going to send my products off for testing to make sure that they're compliant at that 0.3% Delta 9 THC level. So a problem that's coming up with some of these products is some of your laboratories aren't doing the best job that they can with their chromatography procedures, and they're not doing a good job telling the difference between Delta 8 and Delta 9. So Delta 9 THC is marijuana. Okay, that's the psychotropic cannabinoid that gets people high in marijuana. So some concerns that when I talked to my colleagues at the Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene, and those folks test a lot of our impaired driving samples. So if somebody's arrested for impaired driving, we send a blood sample to them and they test it for a variety, many different types of psychotropic substances, including tetrahydrocannabinol. So one thing that they're telling us is, listen, this trend, this Delta 8 THC trend has been around for a while, but we're not seeing a lot of it come back in our casework. And in instances where it has come back in it, there's also been marijuana with it. So the trend that we're seeing is, again, the laboratories aren't doing a good job of telling the difference between the two. So the Delta 8 products that are available, many of them probably contain marijuana. Okay. And there are plenty. The University of Wisconsin-Madison just released some results that they had testing CBD products, and a lot of them contain, just as I showed you what I found with my project, was that CBD products contain marijuana in them and greater amounts than what they're supposed to. So not surprising there. So, another thing to keep in mind and concerns that we have with this unregulated industry. Again, some people may get upset when I show a picture of a dumpster fire at the beginning, but I can't think of a better analogy here in this state, how we handle and how we handle novel THC compounds and how it's gotten out of hand. And our state has really done nothing to keep it in check. And now you're starting to see it evolve and other problems develop. So let's talk briefly why we are seeing this here in the state of Wisconsin. And it comes down to our state statute. So this was revised a few years ago to match what was on the federal level. So the big sticking point here, the gray area, if you will, or legal loophole, some others would call it, is that whole isomerization language. So in the bold, I highlighted in bold the isomerization. And again, if it doesn't have a greater than 0.3% Delta 9 THC concentration, the opinion of our state is those products are legal, though, again, there's not anybody testing. There's no regulation. We don't have a cannabis board or some type of authority that tests these products. And I think if we did and we went through the proper procedures, you would see a lot of these products get cracked down upon. But again, we don't have that here right now. And then on the federal side of things, if you look at the DEA scheduling, if you're unfamiliar with how drugs are scheduled, the United States government, along with the state of Wisconsin, we have a scheduled drug system. So this goes 1 through 5. Schedule 1 drugs are essentially illegal across the board. They have no medical purpose. They're deemed unsafe and addictive. So we don't see those there. I know some people say that, marijuana should not be a Schedule 1 drug. And in other states, that's the case. But on the federal level, As things stand, as of May 2022, the federal government still considers tetrahydrocannabinols illegal, including Delta 8 THC. All right. And then now there are some court cases that are going across the country right now about whether or not Delta 8 THC and novel THCs are legal on the federal side of things. The DEA came out in 2020 and said that the Delta 8 THC products that you see everywhere are essentially illegal. They're a workaround to the Agricultural Improvement Act that President Trump signed in 2020. Okay, so or 2018, excuse me, he signed that in late 2018. So what they're saying in the bottom line here, what I've highlighted is all synthetically derived THCs remain Schedule 1 controlled substances. So that means they're illegal. So this process, the DEA's opinion on it was that these products are illegal because they're synthetically derived. Again, there are the Ninth Circuit, which covers like places like California and Oregon. They came out a few months ago, said that Delta 8 is legal under federal law. And there's also some court cases going on the eastern side of the country. I didn't find any decisions yet, but again, this is all getting hashed out in court. And there's some federal legislation too to clean up some of this language. But so again, this gray area exists. And because of that, you're seeing the evolution of some of these novel THC products. Kind of a map that I pull online with different states, with different laws. I think if you're looking to copy a law, the state of Iowa has some pretty good laws regarding restricting novel THC compounds. And again, a problem that I have when you have an unregulated market is that people then are allowed to do whatever they want. So again, this is a picture from Shawano. I had an officer from the Shawano Police Department send me this photo. And, this is a problem that I have. And I think people that involved in drug coalitions or those who work in schools should also have the same problem that I do. And that you have a vending machine outside a gas station. You have nobody monitoring who comes and who goes and who buys these products. So as a result, I looked at this photo and I said, boy, if that doesn't look like THC vapes in the bottom part of the photo. So I blew it up and sure enough, there they are. Okay. So you can, any Tom, Dick, or Harry, or any 16-year-old can go up to this vending machine and buy these vape cartridges and go to school with them. And, I have a problem with that. And I think our state has done a very poor job. And that's about as professional as I can put it. I have some other words I would like to use, but our state is just dropped the ball. Okay, they dropped the ball on this, and now we're starting to see these cannabis companies are pushing the envelope to see what they can get away with. And now you see these type of vending machines pop up across our state. And one officer shared with me in his jurisdiction, they had one of these vending machines pop up in the area, and somebody broke into it and stole all the vape cartridges out of it. Okay, if these things didn't get you high, would you see that type of criminal activity occur? The answer is no. All right. FDA concerns. If you go onto the FDA website, they'll talk to you about some of the different concerns that are out there. I think the biggest one here, again, most coalitions I talk to have issues with kids getting a hold of these products or child poisoning complaints. My kids, I have 3 boys. They love Sour Patch Kids. And you see, if you look at the labeling on the right, you'll see why that could be confused. The Stony Patch, the gummies that get you high, can be confused with the legitimate Sour Patch Kids that kids like to eat. Okay. So there are reported visits to emergency rooms with kids that have taken their parents' gummies and got high off of them. And the top right picture there, I get a lot of without going into a lot of detail here, there are a lot of issues with people vaping, ingesting products such as propylene glycol into their lungs. And if you do that, you're going to have adverse effects to your lungs. Your lungs are made to inhale air. They're not made to inhale other substances. And you start to inhale things like propylene glycol. This is the result of that. This is a picture of a 20-year-old's lungs. The white parts indicate damage to the inside of the lungs. Okay, so real quick here, again, this was a real short presentation, but hopefully you learned something from it. I guess the big takeaway here is, again, Wisconsin lives in an unregulated market. Okay. At a minimum, I think this state needs to do something with cleaning up language with restricting sales to minors. There needs to be some type of restrictions there. Having vending machines out in the open for anybody to buy these vapes, especially with the concerns with marijuana added to them, that needs to be corrected. Local ordinances may be your best bet, but if you happen to push for those ordinances, expect to fight. I've spoken to people that have tried these around the state, and the cannabis industry, not just in their community, but around the state, comes to fight these things. They know once one community goes ahead with an ordinance, others will follow, and they're worried about losing business. So if you go down that path, expect a fight. Again, I talked about on the federal side of things, the federal, there's a bill being proposed, the Hemp Advancement Act of 2022. Again, they want to clean up some of this language here. The legislative intent of the Agricultural Act that I showed you before was to allow CBD and hemp to thrive, and they didn't intend to legalize marijuana or other tetrahydrocannabinols. So again, now the courts are kind of trying to figure this out. But again, the federal side of things, there's people from both sides of the aisle, again, not making things political, but the people on both sides of the aisle that want to see that language cleaned up a little bit. Again, nothing really peer reviewed on Delta 8 or any of these other novel THCs. So, a lot of it's just marketing and advertising and what these companies come up with. And things I tell officers is, don't do anything different for your drug impaired driving cases. If it looks like marijuana impairment, then go with marijuana impairment. And a lot of these products do contain marijuana in them. So if somebody tells you that they took Delta THC, they could be lying to you, or they could be telling the truth and it just happened to have marijuana in it. Okay. So there's a lot of data we don't know about yet. We just trust our training and experience. And again, the biggest takeaway here, just because the label says it has CBD in it and no THC, that definitely does not make it the case. So again, just was a quick introduction to novel THCs. I work for the Manitowoc Police Department. That is my full-time job. Some would say it's a day job, but it's definitely not during the day. I work at night. There's some of my contact information. And if you like this, please check out the Poking Around podcast. You can find it where podcasts are available online. So thanks for attending today. Thanks for inviting me here. And again, if you have any questions, please contact me. Thank you.